Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to the Reptile Barn. I had Starlight Silver out for just some handling and playing. My hair is something today. Anyway, this is the female Savu python. This is silver phase. And I started thinking about it, and I just got this whole idea for a video. So this is going to be one of those talking about business videos that I do every once in a while because I'm always thinking about it, right? So I hope that this is thought-provoking to some of you. And I apologize, I'm trying to hold the camera myself here, so it's going to be a little wonky. But Silver Starlight here came from GS Reptiles, Gary. Right? Awesome guy, by the way. I recommend his YouTube channel to literally anyone. He's hilarious. And really excellent information, too. So, I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, he's got a great YouTube channel. Really incredible collection. He's fairly widely known amongst, hardcore reptile enthusiasts. And he does not have leopard geckos, bearded dragons, corn snakes, ball pythons. He might have, one or two, just for fun, but his business does not rely upon the traditionally lucrative species, the really easy to care for morphed species, right? BCIs, etc. These animals that are highly popular in the pet trade. He doesn't have them. He has a couple of them, but just for fun. His business doesn't need them, right? And I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. Now I love some of those animals. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm not saying like, you should not keep ball pythons. I have like 140 ball pythons or something. So clearly I freaking love them, right? But you don't have to. So then I was like, well, what are some alternative ways to drive revenue if you are wanting to be a reptile business? Okay? So if you aren't interested in just having, a couple hundred of the exact same species, typically one of those really popular species like a ball python, if that's not really what you're interested in, but you really do want to do it professionally as a business, what can you do? Well, I'll give you the example of what I know of GS Reptiles. He does social media. He's got a great YouTube channel, but he's certainly not, big enough to be full-time income on YouTube. But it helps to have, social media, a little bit of extra income. And then he has specialized in some rare pythons and boas. And I got my Savu pythons from Gary. He is, as far as I'm aware, the most successful Savu python breeder in the country. He tends to get really good results. I guess this year he hasn't gotten many good eggs, but many years, he produces quite a lot. And he has unrelated lines. He really has dialed in their care requirements. He treats customers very professionally. And that's just Savus, right? He's known for his chondros and just some of these other less well-known pythons and boas. And he's thriving, right? And he might have a different job as well. But if he wanted to, he could do reptiles full-time. I'm sure he spends full-time hours on it anyways, like many of us do. But I was just thinking about his business, right? And then I was like, well, and what else is there? So now I just want to kind of go through ideas that I might postulate to somebody who wants to do a reptile business but doesn't just want hundreds and hundreds of the same species. They don't want to be Justin Kabilka, for example. Now, who doesn't want to be Justin Kabilka? But he is a highly specialized ball python breeder, right? And his revenue is driven almost exclusively by that. I know recently he's done a Patreon, and we'll talk about that kind of stuff too. And you know, he makes a little bit of money off his YouTube, I'm sure, and whatnot. But he is primarily a ball python breeder, and he's, you know, one of the best of the best. Oh no, don't get looped on there. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So, if you don't want to do that, if that's not your thing, then what can you do? Well, I just mentioned the Patreon. You kind of already have to be successful before Patreon is really going to work for you, right? You can't just start up as a newcomer and expect a bunch of people to, you know, sign onto your Patreon and want your expert personalized advice and perks and whatnot that you get with the Patreon subscription. And now I'm not subscribed to any Patreons, and I don't have my own Patreon. And I will never have a Patreon. I don't really like it. That's not my thing. So I've looked for other sources of income for my business, right? But it's a valid way to do it, and a lot of people do really well with it. A lot of them will put really exclusive videos only on their Patreon, right? For their paid people. So, sorry, I've got a little bug on me. That being said, the internet has opened up a lot, right, of methods for people. All the big social media platforms you can utilize to make money, and that's great. You know, we have a YouTube channel. We don't really make a lot of money off of it, but I like it. So, I want to get back to the specializing thing real quick. Even within ball pythons, there are specialists. You know, JD Constriction, I believe, is the master of the axanthic gene in ball pythons. I mean, just an absolute master. All the best axanthics come from JD Constriction. That's his thing, right? But what if you wanted to become a leaf-tailed gecko breeder, and that's what you're specialized in? A chameleon breeder, a large monitor breeder, a small monitor breeder. You know, there's all these kind of groups of reptiles that take a lot of expertise, a lot of work, and could really use... My snake's about to pause the video if I don't pull her back. And could really use people who are just dedicated to really, really, really honing in on the specialized care and breeding requirements for different species or groups of species that aren't as widely kept. Now, remember, we're talking about a business here. We're not just talking about, you know, doing conservation work or whatever. You need to pick animals that are going to be able to sell. I know that there are people who just hate this conversation. As soon as you start talking about the money, they're angry. But if you're trying to have a business, you have to make money. I feel like that's pretty basic. So if you go out there and you are like, I'm going to find the most rare species ever that no one keeps, and I'm going to breed that, and I'm going to have a big thriving business, that may not work. You need to have buyers, right? So, but if you become known for something that's a little more rare, and there's not hundreds of other breeders of that animal, you might do really well for yourself. You know, my brother was always interested in the sailfin dragons, and we can't produce them fast enough. We always have this super long waiting list. I never imagined that a rare, fairly large lizard that's expensive would just, we literally cannot produce them fast enough. You know, we sell dozens of the babies, and it doesn't matter. We cannot keep up with demand. So, what I'm really saying about that is find the animals you are passionate about, but also make sure they make business sense. If that makes sense to you guys, I guess. So, some things to consider. How prolific is this animal? You know, is this an animal like I know there's a species called the armadillo girdled lizard. There's a bunch of girdled lizards, but the one I'm specifically thinking of, they have like one baby per year, one little live pup. That might not be your best business decision, right? What if it's a species that just takes a staggering amount of space? What if you're into rare crocodilians? It's going to be, even if there's buyers, it might be difficult for you to run a business just breeding crocodilians, right? Unless you have, maybe you're in Florida and you can do it outdoors, or you just have a staggering amount of money already and you have this big compound or something. But to properly take care of, a bunch of breeding pairs of crocodilians is pretty darn difficult, right? So you also have to consider, what's the price point. I really push back against people who think, oh, I can find something that's easy to breed and I'll produce hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, so even though they're only worth $50, I'll still make money. Yeah, you will still make money, but you are not aiding the reptile world, guys, if that's your business model. I name no names, but that is the business model of some people. I'm just going to produce zillions of normal corn snakes and sell them off to, I don't know, pet stores or wholesalers or flippers or whatever, and I'll still make money because I'm producing tens of thousands of them. Well, a large number of those animals are going to be neglected or abandoned. People just won't take them seriously, and that's unfortunate. And I'm not putting all the blame on the breeder for a buyer being a bad animal keeper. But you should be aware of this when you're starting your business and you're trying to come up with a good business model. Just producing a super high amount or number of very inexpensive animals, I do not consider a good business model. I really don't. And that sucks. That really sucks, because what if that species is one you're most passionate about? If it's corn snakes, maybe produce some morphs so they sell for a little bit more. One, that's good for your business. Two, it keeps it more interesting and dynamic to have different morphs. And three, you're far less likely to have your animals ever be, abused or whatever, improperly taken care of. Unfortunately, people have attached money to value so strongly that they don't understand there's other forms of value. And if they spent $600 on a high-end morphed out corn snake, they are astronomically more likely, sorry, don't eat my nose, to take good care of it and value it. And that sucks. It really does. The normals that are just as beautiful and worthy of a happy life are far more likely to get, just ditched, left on a doorstep, in a box, stuck on a rescue or animal control or whatever. That sucks. I really, condemn that kind of behavior. But as the breeder, we also have some responsibility, because we know that's going to happen, or we should know. We should do what we can to avoid it. So, consider your price point. If your animals are selling for $200 or $300 or above, you can almost eliminate that kind of result for your animal's life, right? And it's better for your business to sell them for a higher price point. Consider the space and the care requirements that your animals will need, and consider that you at least have somewhat of an audience, a customer base. There's a lot that goes into it. And then fourth, make sure it's a species that you're super passionate about. So you're going to do the research. You're going to do trial and error. I've been trying to breed my Dominican boas now for like 5 years unsuccessfully. But I'm still trying because I love them, right? And I'll never abandon them or stop taking good care of them just because they're not making me money, right? They're just freeloaders right now. That's okay. So let me hit on a couple other points real quick so this doesn't become too terribly long. Other than just directly breeding and selling a pet reptile to somebody, you can also make money. We talked about the internet a little bit. You can also make money at some of the support industry. What if you start selling cocoa blocks, Reptichip, the substrates? What if you start selling feeders, enclosures? What if you get into bioactive? What if you sell merch? What if you find a need and fill it, right? That's kind of the big business ideal. Animal harnesses, artwork, what if you start specializing in pet photography? There's just a huge array of skills out there that are in demand that not everybody has, that they will pay for. and items and supplies and just all sorts of stuff, right? So think about what you're passionate about in the hobby. It's such a diverse hobby. You don't have to be a ball python breeder or a crested gecko breeder. You don't have to be a breeder at all, right? There's so many. What if you build custom enclosures? We had a lack of local large reptile shows, so we opened the Alaska Expo. And, it doesn't make us rich, but it's another source of income, right? So there's just so many ways that you can incorporate the reptile hobby into your business, but you have to think outside the box sometimes, especially if you're not interested in one of the tried and true methods. If you're like, man, I can't see myself with a big old building chock full of leopard gecko cages, right? Or I wouldn't enjoy, just cleaning tub after tub after tub after tub after tub after tub of ball pythons. Whatever the case may be, if you're like, man, most people who break into the hobby and become a good business start by doing just a couple of things, and that's true. The majority of us are doing similar things, but if that's not what you want, then you have to be creative. You have to think outside the box, but it is also perfectly reasonable and possible to do that. I enjoy helping people move past the hobbyist level and going into business. I like that because a lot of people dream of that. They just don't quite know how, or they don't believe in themselves enough. I come across that a lot where people are like, I just don't think I would be good enough, or whatever, or wouldn't be able to make sales, or I'm not sure what. But you absolutely can if you have the dedication and the just the skills, I guess, that come from being a good hobbyist. Many of you can become a business if that's what you really want, and I enjoy making that happen. It's not like I make it happen, but I want to encourage people to make it happen for themselves, right? So that's all I'm saying. This has been a really long video. I always worry when I do these just kind of boring sit downs, or I just talk at you, that it's not going to be very interesting for the viewer, but this was on my mind. Figured I'd share it with you guys, and hopefully anyone out there who wants to will at least stick their toes in. You don't have to dive all the way in either. If you're already a hobbyist, you don't have to just commit and be like, man, I'm going to take out a $500,000 business loan and get a giant building. You don't have to do that, right? And I would encourage you not to do that, really. But you can expand a little bit. Spend a bit of money. Get really nice enclosures, or whatever equipment you need. A couple of really nice animals that you've always dreamed of. Worst case scenario, your business doesn't work out, but you gain some dream animals, right? Is that so bad? So anyway, that is all for now. I hope this hasn't gone too long for you guys, but I appreciate those who listened. Hope it was helpful. Until next time, we are the Reptile Barn.